Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online. G'day, I'm Fletch and welcome to the show. Today it's about Holden. It's about its history and some newest additions that have taken place here at the Trafalgar Holden Museum in the beautiful Gippsland of Victoria. In this week's Classic Restos, on the road. You know, it's always a pleasure featuring this place, and you can search the Shannons Club for past episodes filmed here at Trafalgar. There's not many around more devoted than Neil Joyner, and his recent efforts expanding this Holden Heritage Centre is simply amazing. Now graced by a VE Commodore on pole position gracing the forefront of the museum as a recent addition, the premises was originally a dairy, and that history can be saved for another day. But since 2014, the cream has raised to the top in another way by enshrining the history of Australia's own car, the Holden. Now, this ain't about what brand you love, Fords, Chryslers, Datsuns, Toyotas, the list goes on. This is about respect to a backbone that thrived in this country and employed countless thousands of people. This is about Australian manufacturing. It's about legacy. It's about a time when vehicles were very much a part of our families. These museums are another way of saying thanks to our past manufacturers as we knew them. The memories will never die, thanks to places like the Trafalgar Holden Museum. Since I was here last, there's some new exhibitions that I'd like to share with you. So let's go. First up, it's only right to start with the beginning of Holden. So here we are. It's great to be back, Neil.
Welcome. It's great to have you back here.
Thank you very much. You've been busy, haven't you?
Oh, we've been doing a little bit, yeah. We don't let anybody stand around and get idle.
Yeah. Considering the museum hasn't even been here 10 years and the amount of work that you've done and the effort you've put in, it's really incredible, Neil. It really is.
It's a credit to all of our volunteers. We've got a fabulous group of volunteers, and the hard work never shies. They don't frighten away from it at all. So.
Yeah, and how good is it for them every day to you know, it's the old line. It's not coming to work. It's coming to hobby, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
yes. And it is a hobby. You know, we come here every week. We learn something new about Holden.
Well, it starts right here with this newest acquisition, this beautiful building with a facade out the front. It made me feel like I was in the United States of America because they're big on their, you go through a lot of places over there, they're big on their facades, on their buildings. And I think the theming with what you've done, back in the days of Holden and Frost. So what you've done here, you've got like this little village in here. So you might just want to start by telling us a little bit about each section. So the saddle side of things behind us here, what's going on there?
Here we're sort of representing Holden in his very first shop. They were a saddle maker, come upholsterer, come leather worker. And this just gives you a bit of an idea of some of the facilities that the marketing program that they used to go through.
Yep. The diversity is unbelievable, and well before the first car, like before the 48215, the company Holden had already, by that time, been in business, 60 odd, 70 years almost by that point.
So probably more, nearer 90.
So this is interesting stuff. Just putting the car to one side for a moment, the story of Holden goes right back into the 1800s. Really interesting stuff with their saddles, and they made lots of other things which we'll touch on that later. But anyway, well, that's this section. We'll just make our way along. Now, the second section here, Neil, what's going on there?
In there we have just again more leather work. It's only just a display of, because remember, not a lot changed during that period. But Holden were very much into animal husbandry, so there was all sorts of medicines and whatever. And in spite of a lot of the other theories, you know, they were right into mechanical maintenance, greases and oils and fuels and so on for some of the very early engine stuff.
Yeah.
So yes, it's sort of the progression is just an incredible insight. We were very lucky to stumble across a Holden and Frost catalogue.
Yep.
It's been dated as close to 1900 as you can get, give or take a year. It's 128 pages of goods that they sold at that time.
Yeah.
And everything from sort of a million different types of saddles and bridles and the like to all sorts of medicines and whatever.
Just another Australian success story, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And you think of their hard times they went through too. Like,
Oh,
we go into the 1930s, we move forward into the Depression time. And that was another kettle of fish altogether as well.
unbelievable. But if it wasn't for that depression, I believe that Holden would have still been here as Holden without even necessarily GM involvement.
Where are we now, Neil, on the timeline?
We're probably late 1800s. Holden sold a lot of buckles and belts and bridles and bits and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of this is just, you know, today's replica of what it was. But we have had some of these bits with H&F cast into them. So they must have had some foundry work of their own going in that intervening period. We think about them being leather workers, but they're obviously moving well into the metal side of things in their own right. And a lot of this stuff has sort of opened our eyes because we weren't aware of.
What a score for you to have found H&F.
Incredible.
Holden and Frost.
Yep, Holden and Frost.
Amazing.
It's just amazing. And in fact, we've got a pack saddle here, and I bought it as a Holden and Frost. Couldn't find any markings on it. And I rang this bloke up and he got very nasty. He just said, why don't you open your eyes on the crossover member? It's stamped H&F.
Wow.
And sure enough it was too.
Wow.
But yeah, so...
Well, in the end, I hope that guy was stable.
Oh yes, that was all good, yes. Very clever.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life. My Coupe 4 is rare and very special. A real performance car with all-wheel drive grip. I'm not a car club bloke and I don't work on it myself, but I do have a great mechanic. One day, I might even get that HQ. When it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons.
Shannons shares your passion. Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. Moving around our horseshoe here on the timeline, no pun intended, Neil. The buggy behind us, quick story on that.
Quick story on that, it was bought by a farmer in northern South Australia. It was for his wife and his daughter to go to church in on a Sunday morning. We're talking around early 1880s here. And it didn't get a lot of wear and tear because a few years later they decided to buy motor cars instead, and the buggy got punched into the background and left in the shed.
So early 1880s, and they used that through until they bought a car.
Yeah.
They had it for a long time.
Well, we're probably talking, 15 or 20 years maybe.
Yeah, so early 1900s they would have got their car.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
It's it's an interesting time.
Yeah, we often talk about off the horse and into a car.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to comprehend, isn't it?
We think we're going through technology changes. You imagine one day you're shoving hay down a horse's throat, and the next day you're timing a 4-cylinder motor car. It's a massive change in technology, isn't it?
We can only imagine what it would have been like.
Yeah, yeah.
Sidecars now.
Yep.
Some moving innovation. What's the story behind us there,
Okay,
Neil?
we're now around about 1910, give or take a year, and Holden were manufacturing sidecars for Golding.
Wow.
And a lot of them were, sort of branded accordingly.
Yep.
And not long after that, they started designing and building their own brand of sidecar as well. So from a manufacturing point of view, this is where I class them as the start of their bodywork.
Right.
So you're now talking about 1910.
Yeah.
The first body they actually did was around about 1916.
Yep.
There's some conjecture about that, but it's in that sort of era. And then 1917 was when the government put an embargo on cars with imported bodies. So anybody who brought a body into the country, a car with a body on it, would be subject to a tariff of between £25 and £50.
Wow.
Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but
Yeah, I know.
they tell me at the time Holden would body a motor car
Yep.
for £10.10,
Yep.
and they needed about 10 units to break even. So 50 quid was a fair amount. and
Absolutely. We're talking like $100.
You're talking.
Around about, 120 odd years ago.
Somebody once said to me that a pound then, around 1900, was equivalent to $3,000 today.
There you go.
So you're starting to
Yeah.
run into some money, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That just puts it into a little bit of perspective. And interesting too, because they're doing a sidecar at this stage, I guess to the market would have been opening to competitors as well.
So, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know?
So the great thing about the 1917 bill passing was that they were trying to bolster our own bodybuilding businesses. Fancy that, the government looking after their locals. Sort of goes out of context in today's field, doesn't
I
it?
can't comprehend what you're trying to say now. No. No, but this is interesting because this is when they started moving. They started moving forward, and wow, the rest is history thereafter. So Neil, people walk through the museum. They come out the back here. What can they expect to see?
Okay, what we've got here is a replica of the first Holden dealership in Trafalgar. Trafalgar's only a very small country town, as you've seen, and in 1948 it was much smaller. The showroom, they tell me you could house 2 Holden motor cars in there and 2 people, but you couldn't get a desk or a chair in there as well. So it was a very small showroom.
So the salesman, he had to do his book writing out on the footpath.
Absolutely, yes. I think they used to take them into the workshop to do it. Yeah. And we've also got a bit of an old style workshop.
Yeah.
Not a total replica of what it was, but...
Yeah, 'cause it's interesting too, like before dealerships, they sold cars from garages,
That's
didn't
right,
they?
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's what Charlesworth was, the local garage.
Yeah.
In fact, he was actually the local panel beater.
Yeah.
And as you can see there, we've replicated what he should look like.
Yeah.
But the funny story goes with that you'd ring up, you'd break down on the way into town, you'd ring up Traf 55 and get the switch girl and say, Fletch here, my Ford's broken down. Can you get somebody out to have a look at it? And the normal response was, don't be bloody stupid, he's out playing golf this afternoon. Everybody knows that.
I love how you said that your Ford's broken down too. I love that. That's good. And Neil, very cool what you've done here, where the 2 Holdens are on display there when we walk through, and the workshop on the other side.
Yes, it's a bit of a replica of workshops of the day, you know. You'll notice in there we've got a Model T Ford sitting up on the hoist.
Yeah. Oh, obviously something wrong with it.
Obviously,
Yeah.
we don't need hoists for Holdens. But no, we have a bit of a joke with the Ford guys. But it's all in good humour.
You've done some fantastic things. A lot of respect here for this guy. When we look at Australia now, and to the likes of, we have a Holden Museum, Mildura, Echuca, and yourselves here in Trafalgar.
Yep.
And you guys are keeping this going. You know,
well, somebody has to.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to see, first of all, what we had.
Yes.
And secondly, what we've lost.
Yeah.
Every weekend around Australia, motoring enthusiasts get together to share their passion for cars and bikes. It's a passion that brings us together. All sorts of people, all sorts of cars and bikes. From the classics of today to the classics of tomorrow. At Shannons, we understand enthusiasts. So when it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. And if you own a classic, it just has to be insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646, and the Shannons Club awaits you. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. Welcome back. Neil, what you've done here, it's a masterpiece.
Oh, not quite, but we're getting there.
I just remember this last time was a pretty rough shed, but look at it now.
It's starting to get there, yes.
What you've done with the floor and the memorabilia around the walls, it's just, it's a different place.
It is, isn't it?
The people that come in here, this part of your museum, what does it represent?
Right, this is sort of an overflow room, okay? Our main display is inside, where we go from 48215 to HZ, and then we've got a few other bits and pieces and whatever on top of that. In here we're doing our Commodore display.
Yep.
And other bits and pieces that we either haven't got room for inside, or have been on display for too long, or just whatever. But we find this the fascinating part of it.
It's good too that the Commodores are getting recognition in here as well. They're coming into their own.
Absolutely.
There's such a following starting. Well, it's been around for a long time, but it's growing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I remember when, as far as I was concerned, HR finished Holdens.
Yeah.
And then we had to get into the Kingswoods, and now we're into the Commodores. And like a lot of youngish people.
All right, just to give you an example, some of the cars in here, the HD behind us, Neil, what's the story on that?
Okay, it's got 50,000 mile on it, absolutely as genuine as you can get. I'm a HD lover, purely because I nearly died when I watched what the press did to the model.
Yeah, the ugly duckling,
The
right?
ugly duckling, with the kidney cutters. And
and funny, but funny too, it was also the beginning of the premiere too.
Yes.
With that beautiful interior.
Oh, they had some magnificent, and they were genuine leather interiors too. So I'm very much a HD man, and this is similar to, I had one like this with it, but it was an X2.
So how did it come along? What's its history?
It was actually in Queensland, and just popped up one day, and it had 49,900 mile on it or something, and I thought, So I went and I grabbed it. Yeah. But beautiful car, isn't it?
It is.
Just magnificent.
Gorgeous. They all tell a story. That's what I love. Love the history. What dealerships were they sold from? What areas did they reside? What sort of running did they do?
Yeah.
That over there, a plumber's wagon.
The plumber's EK wagon, yep.
Like, it went through a life with a tradesperson, came out the other side. Even if it's had work done to it, so what? It's still survived, hasn't it?
The body on that was quite remarkable.
Yeah.
It was just the paintwork that had to be done. Otherwise, it'd be all original.
This would have to now be, I would say, the most emotional room in the house. It's the Peter Brock section, where you've actually got some of Peter's vehicles in here that
Absolutely.
Brocky actually drove.
Yes. right behind you there.
Let's start off with this Austin. What the
Austin
story there?
A7.
Yeah.
Your opinion of them and mine would probably agree. Somehow he disassembled it to that stage, and that was his paddock bomb.
So this was we hear of him getting around the paddock and this contraption.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. It's got ball tyres too.
Yeah, that's the actual vehicle, and I believe that's the condition it was in when they found it.
Yeah. Wow. Now this EH behind us, bit of a sensational car. This EH was not a very heavy car. It was running triples on full song. That would have sounded awesome.
It would have sounded fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That was going to go to Goodwood in England the year after he died. He'd been there not long before he died.
Yep.
And if you ever see it, you can Google it, and it comes up, and here's old Humpy getting around amongst all these little A30s and the like.
Yeah.
And he's sliding from one side of the road to the other, but keeping up with all of them.
Yeah.
And they were all amazed and saying, who is this guy and what is this thing?
Yeah.
You know?
I can't believe how well the Humpies race.
Amazing.
Like even the guys today at Eastern Creek are pulling 200 down the chute.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking a 138 grey engine and not a lot of modifications done, and getting them to rev that hard to pull 120 miles an hour.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
and we're talking stuff, it's well over half a century old.
Yes.
Okay, time for Brocky's to run over back there. 1974 LH. Around about 350 horsepower he was running
So they reckon,
back in the time. And when you look at that, like power to weight ratio, that's a stout little car.
Oh, it'll get up and go, won't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be really, really tops.
How do you feel in the presence of the cars that he used to drive here in your museum?
Yeah, it's all absolutely awesome, isn't it? It's sort of quite moving. It's just a shame he ain't here to spend it with us.
Yeah, I know. And if he was still with us, chances are you might not have the cars.
No, well, that's possible too, isn't it?
And how did you feel when you acquired Peter's first car? When you must have remember that time.
All of these are on loan to us.
Right. We've all heard stories of of the Austin that he put the 6-cylinder into as well, and that's it over there as well.
That's it.
It's virtually a mid-mounted car, isn't it?
It is, yeah. You're sitting alongside it, all the action, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, yes, it's an amazing bit of work, and I bet it absolutely flew.
Yeah, Austin A40?
A30.
An
I think it
A30?
is,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be too many Austin A30s getting around to be go like that. I love the signatures up under the bonnet as well. I think that's very, very cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, look, this is another edition here at the Trafalgar Holden Museum, and Neil, again, it's just incredible what you've done here to have a Peter Brock room. And, for any die-hard Peter Brock enthusiast, I don't think there'd be a dry eye in the house walking in here to see pictures around the wall. And it goes outside as well. You've got a cabinet there with Peter Brock memorabilia everywhere. And it's a beautiful tribute to the great man.
Well, he's all part of the story, isn't he? And a major part of the story.
Yeah. And of course, the general car display here at the Trafalgar Holden Museum is always a must-see, where you can see every model from a 48 215 through to an early 2000s Monaro. And the turnover of stock and display is always changing here at Trafalgar as well. Now, rounding off today's show, we're in a special room here, or a part of the building that is not completed as yet. But just to put a toe in the water, this is the design part of the museum, representing the design department of Holden. Now, there's just a couple of examples in here at the moment, but behind us we've got the last Commodore to roll off the line.
Commodore clay model?
A clay model. Now, a clay model has always fascinated me. The designing has always fascinated me with cars. If you gave me a chunk of clay and said, here, go and make a shape, it'd end up a horrible mess.
Yeah, man, probably worse than mine.
But the timber framework and the work behind and under the clay and the high tech, it's not just getting a chunk of clay and a spatula and making a shape, is it?
It's unbelievable, the complexity of it. I had no idea. This is the first clay model I've ever seen. And I'm just blown away by the complexity of it.
Yeah.
and just what they can do with it is
Well,
just
even the
magic.
little slide pieces in the front where you can adjust a headlight in or out to the optimum length of the vehicle.
Yeah,
It's
amazing.
yeah.
It's amazing technology, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to prove that we're not totally biased, if you look at GM's number one designers, they're Australians.
Yeah.
And you go to Ford, and their number one designers are Australians.
Yep.
In
Yep.
fact, they had a whole department there.
Yes.
In fact, I think they still might have.
Yep.
Doing
Well-
design work for all over the world.
Credit where credit's due. Mike Simcoe, GM Styling in Detroit, in Harley Earl's office there. You can search for that episode on the Shannons Club, one of the USA tours, the 2017 year, I believe, to go to Detroit's head office and catch up with Mike Simcoe. I get goosebumps every time I talk about that.
I get goosebumps thinking about
No,
it.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better than that.
No, it
Anyway,
certainly doesn't.
when we come back, obviously there's going to be a little bit more going on in this section of your museum, Neil. But again, thank you for the invitation back. It's been wonderful seeing you again and seeing the updates of what you've done here at the museum.
Fletch, it's always a privilege to have you here.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed the day and I've loved the company.
Thank you.
I really look forward to having you back
Well,
again.
it's very nice, and I think just the effort you go to and, the things you're doing here, the initiatives that this man is taking on to develop this place. As I said earlier today, you haven't been here 10 years yet each time I've been here, it just keeps getting better and better, so good on you, mate.
Thank you very much, Fletch. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you've really enjoyed this week's episode of Classic Restos, comprising a few new additions to the Trafalgar Holden Museum here in the beautiful Gippsland of Victoria. If you belong to a car club, you want to round up a few members and get them together, come on down and see Neil and the team. They'll make you feel more than welcome. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.